you're trying to accomplish a specific result, wouldn't it make the most sense to learn from the person who has achieved that result at the highest possible level? It doesn't matter if it's fitness, business, relationships, faith, etc. It makes the most sense to learn from the people who have had the most success possible. And in the world of business and wealth creation, wouldn't it make the most sense to learn from the person who has been the absolute richest and most wealthy man on earth? Who is that man? It's none other than King Solomon. Most people, when they think about King Solomon, they think about the fact that number one, he was old, Bible times. 2, he had a whole lot of wisdom. 3, he was a king. And 4, he had a ton of wealth. But most people don't really look further into the fact that he was actually a bit of a consultant, and that there's a whole lot of business principles you could actually take from his specific life and really all of the good information that is in the Bible. So today we're going to be diving into 5 specific lessons and key takeaways, frameworks, etc. that we can pull away from what is taught in the Bible about King Solomon and how we can apply that to our businesses today. Lesson number 1, I've already alluded to it. He was a consultant, so he wasn't selling products, he was selling typically a service. Consulting specifically for him was simply giving people wisdom. This can be supported in 1 Kings chapter 10, talking about the Queen of Sheba, and how the Queen of Sheba had come to him from a different land, and she came all the way with all of these questions, but she specifically came to him for his wisdom. Pretty much everyone came to him for his wisdom. That claim can also be supported later in chapter 10, verses 23 through 25. In 23 through 25, it says, King Solomon surpassed all of the kings of the world in riches and in wisdom. The whole world wanted an audience with Solomon to hear the wisdom that God put on his heart. And then lastly, 25, it says, every man would bring his annual tribute, items of silver, gold, clothing, weapons, spices, and horses and mules. So people were not just coming to him for his wisdom, they were also paying him for it. This is what we would consider in today's modern day and age consulting or coaching. The second principle that we could learn from King Solomon was that he under-promised and over-delivered. So this specifically can also be supported in chapter 10, talking about the Queen of Sheba. She said to the king, the report I heard in my own country about your words and about your wisdom is true. But I didn't believe the reports until I came and saw with my own eyes. Indeed, I was not even told half. Your wisdom and prosperity far exceed the report I heard. She was promised one thing, and she was delivered a whole nother thing. Unfortunately, a lot of today's day and age coaches, consultants, course creators, literally a lot of business owners all throughout the world, unfortunately do the opposite. They overpromise and they far underdeliver, which is obviously going to hurt word of mouth. But for him and his sake, his reputation preceded what he actually delivered on. The third lesson that we could learn from King Solomon is about audience selection, or your niche, right? So in his specific case, he worked with top down. So he was consulting with not just anyone. He was specifically consulting with royalty and with kings and queens. This could be supported, by the way, in chapter 10. If you want to look at verse 14 and 15, it says, the weight of gold that came to Solomon annually was 25 tons, besides what came from merchants, traders, merchandise, and all of the Arabian kings and governors of the land. Meaning, the main customers that he had, or the main clients that were paying him, were merchants, traders, Arabian kings, and governors of the land. So all of those people were movers and shakers in the marketplace. They all had authority. They all likely were leading over other groups of people. So it would make sense for them to seek the wisdom from Solomon so they can understand how they can apply that wisdom to lead the other people they are also in charge of. Also, obviously, Queen of Sheba, she was also royalty, and so she also paid him a great deal of money to hear all of the wisdom he had. It's not just because the wisdom was simply fun, it's because the wisdom allowed them to better serve the people they were in charge of. He can serve fewer people and have a far greater impact because he's working with the right audience. Not just the fact that it's more efficient, he also was able to be paid far more by people of influence than just your average everyday earners in that day and age. So not saying that you have to specifically change your marketing strategy to, go for influential people or, high-end business earners, but the point here still does remain the same. If you want to be really efficient with your coaching or your consulting business or your course creation business, make sure that you're serving the people that are really going to have a ripple effect and an impact far greater than simply a one-to-one impact. For example, if I can help someone make more money, sure, I can go teach a 9-to-5 earner how to get an increase in wages. What if I was able to go teach the business owner who is in charge of 500 employees how they can grow their business? Well, now all 500 of those employees are going to be impacted, and far more employees, whoever they're going to end up hiring in the future. Also, all of the people that are doing business with that business are also going to be impacted because their businesses will grow as well. The fourth lesson we can learn from King Solomon is pricing. What about pricing? Well, he specifically was not in the low ticket game, okay? He charged premium rates. In chapter 10, we could look at 14 and 15, once again saying the weight of gold that came to Solomon annually was 25 tons. That is a whole lot of gold. Or if we want to look at chapter 10 and looking at specifically verse 10 to see how much the Queen of Sheba paid him, it says, "Then she gave the king 4.5 tons of gold, plus a great quantity of spices and precious stones. Never again did such a quantity of spices arrive as those the Queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon." Also, right after that, in addition, Hiram's fleet that carried gold from Ophir brought from Ophir a large quantity of almug wood and precious stones. And then you skip later into verse 12 and it says, "Never before did such almug wood arrive, and the like has not been seen again." You could also support the premium rate conversation by going into chapter 10, verse 25, saying that every man would bring his annual tribute, items such as silver, gold, clothing, weapons, spices, horses, and mules. At the end of the day, he wasn't just saying, hey, come pay me a single dime. People were paying him a great deal of money, great deal of, at that time, resources in order to be able to hear from his wisdom. Couple nuances on this. It is way easier to charge a great deal of money whenever you are working top down. So when you're actually servicing people of influence and people that are already pretty successful, they are technically speaking just much more able to pay you a greater deal of money. But secondly, your service itself doesn't necessarily even need to change. They simply value it at a far greater rate than other people. For example, if you are a tax strategist, you can technically save, someone who's making $100,000 a year a little bit on taxes, let's call it 10%. Sure, that might help them out. But if you could save 10% to someone that's making a few $1,000,000 a year, they're going to value your service at a far greater rate. And the fifth thing we can learn from King Solomon here is to serve others and put their needs and desires above that of your own. So in 5 through 14, it says, "At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream at night, and God said, 'Ask, what should I give you?' And it says, Solomon replied, 'You have shown great and faithful love to your servant, my father David, because he walked before you in faithfulness.' Then he goes on and it says, 'Lord my God, you have now made your servant king in my father David's place, yet I am just a youth with no experience in leadership. Your servant is among your people who you have chosen, a people too many to be numbered or counted. So give him a receptive heart to judge your people and to discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this great people of yours?'" So right there, he's ultimately saying, hey, look, I don't even care about my own needs. I need to serve the people that you've put me here to serve. You have put me in this position to serve your people, and who am I to serve them? I don't have experience. Lord, give me the wisdom to serve these people. This is not about his own doing. This is truly about putting others first. And because of that, it says in verse 10, it says, "Now it pleased the Lord that Solomon had requested this. So God said to him, 'Because you have requested this and did not ask for long life or riches for yourself or the death of your enemies, but you asked for discernment for yourself to administer justice, I will therefore do what you have asked. I will give you wise and understanding heart, so that there has never been anyone like you before and never will be again. In addition, I will give you what you did not ask for, both riches and honor, so that no king will be your equal during your entire life.'" At the end of the day, what happened there is that, once again, he's not necessarily prioritizing his own wants and desires. He's just saying, God, I understand I'm here for a reason, and you've put me in this place, and I could try to serve these people, but I don't really have experience, and I know I'm going to drop the ball if left to my own resources. So, God, give me the wisdom and discernment to serve your people. And obviously, God responded there saying, hey, I appreciate your heart here. I will give you the wisdom and discernment, but because of that, because you are prioritizing other people's needs and desires above your own, I will still give you the other needs and desires that you would also like. So to recap, there are 5 specific lessons or takeaways that we could try to apply into our own businesses. And, this isn't going to serve everyone, but if you have a high ticket offer, you could get some tangible takeaways from these. Number 1 is, he had a consulting business. So what does that mean for you? Does it mean that you have to, maybe you're in a done-for-you style environment, you have to continue doing done-for-you, or maybe could you pivot your services into a way of which you have either a coaching program or a consulting program that you could serve more people without being restricted with your time? Number 2, once again, he under-promised and over-delivered. He personally wasn't even under-promising. People were going about to other nations, telling each other of his wisdom. They were going and finding out all of the wisdom he had. When we under-promise and we over-deliver, deliver, the surprise and delight factor for customers and clients is off the charts. People are really going to start praising your services. They're going to start telling other people about you. Your word of mouth is going to start compounding, and it's really going to be able to create more demand for your services. Number 3, once again, he consulted top down. Now, I'm not saying you have to go change up your audience of who you serve, but make sure that who you serve is going to have some sort of a ripple effect on the impact you could have both on your customers, but also the economy, and really how that's going to come back into your business. So if you're trying to serve everyone, it's really hard to actually do that. So how can you structure your services or structure your products in a way that if you serve one person, not just one person is positively impacted. There's actually far more than that can be impacted. And with that top-down leadership, it obviously allowed him to kind of then transition into our 4th lesson, which was charging premium rates. Now, once again, premium rates for everyone is contextual, so do what you feel is the right thing to do for your customers, but keep in mind that people pay attention to what they pay for, and people's hearts follow where their pocketbooks or their wallets go. So make sure that obviously you're charging an adequate amount that is really going to make sure people are bought into seeing the result that you have to help them with. Especially in the world of consulting or coaching, if you don't charge enough money, someone might pay you happily, but they're not necessarily going to be held accountable to taking what you do seriously. And at the end of the day, you're really not servicing anyone or serving anyone when they are paying you and they're not actually getting a result because they're not taking action on what you're telling them to do. And lastly, simply serve others and put their needs and desires far above that of your own. Can you imagine if we're reading the Bible and it says that Solomon was just trying to seek out how to get rich, and so he came up with this consulting business to help people out? Like, no, it's completely backwards. The consulting business had arose for him, or all of the gifts and the payments came his way out of a demand for his services. And his services were only there just because they weren't even there to serve himself. He literally asked for this skill set. He asked for the gifting of discernment and wisdom to be able to serve people, but it wasn't so he could just go create money. He just wanted to simply help people, and he wanted to do right unto what the Lord had called him to do. So what does that look like for us? Does it look like maybe adding more value to the service that you actually offer? Does it maybe look like offering a different service that your customers need even more than what you're currently offering? Or would that simply change how your marketing messages are perceived? A lot of people can read through all of the marketing messages, all of the content that you put out, and they can see if you're simply doing this just for selfish gain or if you're actually doing it to help them. So that really does go a long way. Now, if you'd like more practical takeaways, action items, advice, etc., for how to see some success, specifically by using King Solomon's principles, there's far more than 5. Those are just 5 that I specifically included in this video, but would highly encourage go read through the Bible and go do some research on King Solomon yourself, and I think you will find a wealth and a breadth of knowledge that you can still apply to your modern day life. Thanks so much for watching today's video, and if you'd like more videos like this, make sure you smash that like button, or ideally the subscribe button, so that you can be notified when you have more videos every single week talking about how to scale up your high-ticket business.